Good day, everybody watching. It's April 30th, and you're joining us for another one of the National Candidate Slate discussions. I have here in the studio today Diane Sayer, who came down from New Jersey, and joining us over Skype video is Keisha, Rachel, Dave, and Bill. So we have a discussion planned for today, and I'll give it to Mr. Lyndon LaRouche to start off the conversation.
I have some questions, which are more than just questions. We've gone through, in the recent weeks or 2 weeks, we've gone through a very significant upgrade in the performance of the entire effort. We're actually into the campaign season, but I don't think we should look at just the campaign seasonal kind of a thing. There's much more going on now than just that. What we're doing, we're getting into the crucial point where Obama is in trouble. He pretends not to be. He always pretends not to be in trouble when he is. But also, at the same time, we've got a significant increase in the active presence of our campaign and organizational work during the past 2 weeks. It's become very significant if I take the past 2 weeks together. Part of this is due to the activity of the candidates. That's a factor, but it's not the prime factor yet. What it is, we are actually getting a situation, the DWAPA program is now beginning to cut in very significantly. That's one thing. What I think I would like to hear, I think others would like to hear among themselves as well as one to another, as well as otherwise, is exactly where do we stand on this? We've got, on the campaign work, we're getting an upgrade in some areas. We've got blank spots where we don't know whether the people who are turning away from Obama are going no place. And the factor of how do we get the people who are turning against Obama into the role now? And what success are we having in that direction? What problems are we having in that direction? These kinds of questions, I think, must be sort of extracted now in order to give us a better picture of where we're going into this week.
Well, just to start off, I mean, as people know, we did have this debate last, if you could call it that, last Wednesday in Bergen County, New Jersey, and I am officially running against two other candidates. One of them, Adam Gusson, the deputy mayor of Teaneck, who is with Team Pumpkin Chunkin, who throws pumpkins on the weekends and says that this is his strategy for winning the western part of the state, decided not to show up 36 hours before the event. And interestingly, this completely infuriated the chairman of the Bergen Grassroots, who sponsored this debate. And in fact, he was so angry, he read Gusson's letter to the entire crowd and then said, obviously, he will not get our endorsement. So that was one out. Then the other candidate, Jason Castle, who is a 30-year-old African-American Marine veteran from Iraq, but clearly was picked up by the party, picked up by the Obama crowd just so they would try and have someone, because they couldn't get the football player to run and they couldn't get the anchorman from Channel 12 News. So at the last minute, they recruit him, he doesn't even live in the district. He's going to move in the district, and he knows absolutely nothing, and at one point in the debate says that he would need to get a PhD to understand my website, and he doesn't have time to do this. And then in the two things that I thought were very significant is one woman there who wrote a blog about the thing described the audience as being hostile to Jason Castle, which simply was not the case, as if the LaRouche supporters had stacked the audience, which we did not do. We might have had maybe a third of the people who were there were people somehow supporters of my campaign. 2/3 were not. And typically this is a group that thinks that they don't like LaRouche, who thinks that, or I'm sure they did support Obama in the past, but a lot of them are older, sort of FDR Democrats, and they're anti-fascist. And there was a tangible turning point in the debate when Obama's signing of the NDAA came up. And I answered, as I did, saying it was unconstitutional and should be repealed. And Castle said that, well, we still have all these people that we really don't know what to do with in Guantanamo, and You can't really, repealing it wouldn't really do anything, and we're too far down the rabbit hole. And this completely infuriated some of the crowd who had nothing to do with me. But people in the audience were taking notes saying, oh, these are the LaRouche people. They were, after the debate, they were LaRouche people, but not coming in. The second aspect was what I thought is interesting, and it's a reflection of this whole collapse of the European banking system, where you have Geithner making all these crazy statements how Glass-Steagall wouldn't fix anything, and Glass-Steagall, they were obsessed with Glass-Steagall. And even the press coverage says Glass-Steagall was the topic of the debate. And the news about the debate was that Jason Castle and Diane Sayre have a disagreement on Glass-Steagall. Diane Sayre says it's necessary to reinstate it. Castle says it wouldn't do anything. So those were two of the features of the dynamic there.
What do we got from some others?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying, just to kind of add to that, that I think what we're seeing across the board, particularly with the disgust of Obama and the very hard time that the Democrats are having to try to recruit and organize the population to sign a loyalty oath and support this guy, I mean, it's completely absurd. You think about the fact that in 2008, when Obama was first getting into the White House, or first going for the nomination, there were over 7,000 people at some of these conventions, state Democratic Party conventions. And now you're seeing one of the biggest conventions here in Houston, when they just had their state conventions, their Senate district conventions, they had maybe 100 or less than 100 people showing up to sign loyalty oaths for Obama. So I think what we're going to see right now is the Democratic Party, what they're banking on is that the population will be so demoralized that the only people that are going to come out and actually vote and participate are the people who are party hacks. And that's what we're representing as an alternative. By what we're doing, particularly this weekend here, I had several events. We were participating in a large festival in one of the districts, along with the parade that we participated in, and lots of interaction going on, development around the North American Water and Power Alliance. And what we're getting from the population is the population, they're looking for solutions. They know this whole thing's coming down. They know the system is bankrupt. This bailout policy has been a fraud. And every time that we go out and put forth the clear solutions, NWAPA is getting massive traction, especially in Texas here. I mean, what we just went through with this massive drought, the fact that we're taking this NWAPA project out and giving them a clear-cut policy solution. We have the program here, how much concrete, how much steel, how much cement, the skilled labor that would have to be put back to work. People are ready to participate in that, especially in our agricultural industries and development sectors. So what we just witnessed this past week in terms of the fact that you have a whole breakdown of our industry, what we're getting is that people know that this election doesn't mean a thing. It's a fraud. You have nobody qualified. Obama looks pathetic right now when it comes to people to be delegates for him, and Mitt Romney is just as bad as a disgrace. So I think what we're looking at now here in Texas is 28 days left before the Texas primary. And what we're seeing is that as we go out into the population, Glass-Steagall, NWAPA have been the household names, have become a big subject of discussion all across the city, all across the district. And one last thing that I'll just add to this in terms of what we're doing to freak out the opponent. We just had one of our contacts call and say that my opponent came running into a Democratic Party meeting, which is not even in his district, and saying, as they were getting ready to adjourn, stop, wait, don't adjourn, I have to talk to you. I have to let you know who I am. I'm KP and I'm running against Keisha Rogers. I'm running to stop Keisha Rogers, the LaRouche Democrat, because she wants to impeach Obama. And everybody was looking at him like, what are you doing here? This is not even your district. But, I mean, right now I can just say that what we're seeing in these next 28 days are going to be a test of the strength of the American people to come out in full force and send a clear message to Obama that he has to go now. We're not subjects of this British Empire. We're not going to be royal. We're not going to be servants of the empire, as Obama said at the Queen's at the Queen's 50th anniversary, and show that this guy has to go now. And I think if we can make a breakthrough in this campaign and Diane's campaign, we'll be setting the stage for a big shock effect for the entire country.
There's something in this that you've outlined, but something else is decided. The first thing is, what worried me was that people were turning away from the Democratic candidacies, but they weren't going anywhere, and that problem has to be addressed. That's a big one. The other thing is, we are not getting enough pressure on the question of the finance, the monetary system, money system, and we're not getting that in there enough. We're getting the two things that Nuwapa's doing fine. What we're doing in terms of the campaign, Glass-Steagall, is doing fine, but the third element is not getting pushed enough.
National banking.
Yeah, national banking, and because the other thing that could be added is to attack the British factor, to run an anti-British. Now, say the British monarchy is going to hate this. That we're not going with their system. We're going with the national banking system, and Glass-Steagall, and the British hate it, and the people hate it, and when we present to them, in every instant, present the fact that there's not going to be enough money in the system, even with Glass-Steagall, unless we also go with national banking. That it's not possible. I would also add that what we've found is that as of this past week or so, that the whole U.S. system has gone to a breakdown point. That is the fact there is nothing left of real production in the United States. It's gone. So the talk about jobs and jobs coming in is absent. There are no jobs coming in. The present U.S. economy is breaking down. And therefore, without these three elements combined, it will not be possible to rescue the U.S. economy. And then say the problem is the British problem. And the problem is Obama is a British tool. And as long as he's around, you're not going to have a recovery in the United States. And put the British angle on Obama. Stick it on hard.
Well, I'll bring up one notable response that we've been getting, because here in Michigan there were a lot of cities and labor unions that supported the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act, which we've been calling back. But there was a lot of hesitancy when it came to really getting behind Glass-Steagall when we really started pushing with this a number of years back. And what we've been picking up on recently, in the instance of a city council meeting here, where we presented Nuwapa, Glass-Steagall, national banking, and Nuwapa at a city council that had not really gotten behind what we were doing before because of internal opposition. But the response we got was interesting, which was that there was a recognition that the cities in this area do not have the revenue base that they need. And so without having a plan to create jobs, without directly getting to that question of a federal program for jobs and to have the companies there that are producing, that are productive, and a recognition that you're not going to get jobs without industry, that there was an openness to what needs to go on, what needs to happen with national banking and Nuwapa.
Then you're tipped off something here. What about a slogan, is an interim slogan, You know, you have different slogans at different points to try to augment and enhance what you're doing in each thing. What about a thing? Let's talk about jobs.
Okay.
And just go at that. Let's talk about jobs. Cut the bullshit. Let's talk about jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, I just want to throw one thing in, which is on the question of the demoralization, because we had a very solid response on Glass-Steagall from some of the local party organizations, well, actually, county-wide, statewide, so on, who endorsed Glass-Steagall. However, when the discussion of national banking comes up, and there's a recognition within this crowd that you and also some of the labor groups as well around Glass-Steagall and so on, but when bringing up national banking, there's a kind of cynicism that anything can be solved at the federal level. And one of the things that's come up here in Washington State, and I know that there's a move in California as well, which is the whole concept of a state bank. And the idea that we can't do anything at the national level, therefore we're just going to have a state bank. It's going to be modeled on what North Dakota is doing. This is sort of the line that North Dakota has a state bank, and they're able to invest directly into the state, and they don't have Bank of America or whoever else managing their finances. But what the point that I've brought up with a number of these guys is, okay, well, what money are you going to put in your state bank? If the whole dollar blows out, what are you going to put in your state bank? Maybe it's fine if the idea of local investment, but what the response generally that comes is, well, we can't fight it at the big level. Wall Street's too powerful. We'll just try to go to this localized level. Now, it's unclear whether or not there's other kinds of operations being run to intentionally distract people away from the focus on national banking. But I just want to make one quick point on the paper that you made, that you just did, Len, responding to Liam Halligan, where really, in real currency, the value of your currency has to be determined from the scientific standpoint of that the future value is being determined by the kind of investments and so on that are increasing the energy flux density of the economy as a whole. And that's how you have to see the nature of currency. And it's not just simply that there's some fixed supply of it, that, which is, I think, where people get into this monetarist conception, where they think that something like a state bank is even an option, when it's not. It has to be seen from what's the nation doing to orient towards the future development.
Yeah, you can probably add in a little remark there. Now, it's true that Andrew Jackson has been dead for a long time, but we're not going to survive on the kind of money and the kind of banking system that he did to destroy the original banking system of the United States. Mm-hmm. And we went nearly bankrupt totally because of that jackass. Now let's talk carefully about things, and let's make sure we know what we're talking about. And you know how to handle it exactly. But something like that, to get it across. And if you hit Andrew Jackson, people will be stunned.
Yeah.
They won't. What are you attacking Andrew Jackson for? What did he do? Well, I think we could tell the citizens a few things about Andy Jackson, could we? Yeah. And work that in. You have to, in a sense, you have to cause the citizens out there to free themselves from the hidden myths that they believe in, and raise things with them. And the citizen always reacts to think, when he starts looking around, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? What was that about? Oh, this is extremely important. That's why we're in bankruptcy now. It's because of Andy Jackson. Did you know that? Now I'll explain it to you. And I think the point is to get, because the citizens tend to get so stuck in pet issues that they accumulate, and they think it's like this way they vote. They'll pick an issue, or they pick another issue, and they think that these issues are important, other issues are not important. You really have to shock them to get them to recognize that what they have believed, what they've accepted in general. In other words, what will happen is you get the problem. The citizen will tend to respond to something, and that will be important to them, and they will discuss it. They will argue about it, and so forth. But they will miss about 10 other things, which are just as important, and then you see, but you're confusing me. Now, the point is, we can simplify this for you. We need a program with 3 elements. Glass-Steagall, without Glass-Steagall, you're dead. But Glass-Steagall won't be able to save you. It will keep you wiggling, but it won't make you rich. What you need is then you need a system of national banking, federal national banking. Why? Let us explain it to you, what this stuff is. I'm sure you don't understand it, but you want to understand it. Let us explain it to you. And then you go with the thing. Also, now what does this mean? We've got the biggest project that mankind has ever done in any single nation. It's called NWAPA. This thing is big enough to give you 4 million new solid jobs, not make-work jobs, but real jobs. And it will give you employment for up to 25 years at least of new development. We're going to rebuild this nation. You can't do it without these measures. You cannot save this nation without these measures. And don't believe anybody who tells you to the contrary. That kind of thing, you know how to do it. Do it. You have to have a rate of terror in the sense of intellectual terror.
I'll just say that in the population, we've been finding largely what other people around the country have been, which is that we are coming down to a point where the only issue is Obama. We're definitely finding a big response on NWAPA as the alternative, but we're finding that when we start briefing people on the policies and whatnot, they're like, I just hate this Obama. And there does seem to be a definite separation between the population and the institutions in this sense, where the people in the institutions might have a sense of that personally, but they don't have the courage right now to simply say it. And I think it is what you brought up about this question of hurting Obama's feelings, because they can tell that Obama is weak psychologically, and they don't want to hurt his feelings by saying that about him.
We don't want to feel Obama. We just don't want to feel him at all. We don't know that he's clean even,
Well, just to follow up on that, because one thing we've noticed out here is from the labor crowd, and I mean the labor crowd that does the kind of people that would be doing NWAPA, the moving the earth and laying the cables for the electricity, the industry layers. But from that crowd, from the union crowd, you've gotten a real turn that I've reported on this before, but say a year ago when we were going to them around NWAPA, there was still this idea that maybe the stimulus thing would work out, maybe under Obama they were still going to get some jobs. Now what we've found from them is a number of them say, I wish the stimulus wouldn't have even happened, because we had this money coming in, we had to get a bunch of new equipment, and and then once we started the project, it didn't go for very long, and therefore we ended up having to sell off equipment, and in the end we didn't make anything anyway. And so there's a certain sense of that they're pissed off about Obama. They now have seen what this guy has done over the year in terms of the increased police state measures, the wars, and so on. And so one of the comments from one of the ladies in one of the unions had said that she goes, the guys in my union, they don't want the Democrats because they think they're a bunch of toothless dogs. So there's this side from the unions, which is beginning to break with Obama. I won't say that it's across the board, but that's definitely within people that are not totally demoralized. There's a quality of fight. But on the other side, when you get to, say, the grassroots component, And particularly out here, one of the neighborhoods that we were going in door to door over the weekend, which is largely African American groupings, and then also a large group of the what you call the left side, maybe the old socialist networks or whatever. But these were the people that were very active around Bush and Cheney, and they were very active from the standpoint that they didn't like the wars and the police state measures and fought. And now they are very demoralized. And I think that there's a way in which it almost as if targeted for demoralization to prevent them from actually fighting, because this is a group that would fight on their own were it not for this Obama demoralization question. So I think the more we're in there and just laying it out principally, that this party thing doesn't mean anything, the Obama, the hope and the change, what you thought and all that, that's what the issue is it is the British question. It's the Wall Street, the financial control over both the parties, and that we're going to fight it on principle, and that it's these core principles that we've laid out: Glass-Steagall, national banking, NWAPA, and get them. I think, as you were saying earlier, Lynn, with this idea that if they can see it as a single idea, that their ability to see that as a single idea is going to be the foundation for a mass strike. That it's not separate entities that we're sort of lumping together, but this reflects a principle, our constitutional principle and a principle of humanity, of this quality of development and commitment to the future.
Well, the danger is in this situation, if we're not alert to it, is we don't want a collection of issues. We want a single, unified conception of what is going to save this nation. And we better be damn right that it is going to save this nation, that we cannot fool around with experiments. Mm-hmm. We can't make mistakes. But there are the issues, like the 3 issues, those are clear. And if we stick to those 3 issues, but then place them, in other words, you don't need new issues, you need to place the issues so that they fit in every area of the nation that you're going into. But it's the same idea, but it has different expressions. There are different kinds of industries in different parts of the state. Agricultural in one area, something else in another area. But that's not a problem. What you have to do is take the single package of issue, and that one package as the way to save this nation. And you can add in then the war problems and so forth. What the people need a sense of genuine hope, of real hope. And the only real hope we can give them, apart from saying bad things like bad wars and things like that, or the drug trafficking, but the real thing we're looking for is the positive actions, combination of things as a set. We can save the nation, and mainly save the economy is the key to that whole thing of saving the nation. Then you can work in the subsidiary issues of the sectional issues and so forth in terms of a single theme, the 3-part theme. And I know we can do it. I know the group here can do it. It's just a matter of just talking among each other and more broadly so that we get this thing in focus all the time and look at this thing every week and make sure we're getting in focus in this sense. Because we'll stick with the same program. We'll stick with Glass-Steagall. Obviously, you can't save this nation without Glass-Steagall, but Glass-Steagall can't do much beyond that. Therefore, you need national banking. Now, why do you need national banking? Because we need a lot of productive jobs. We need a job program, which is actually growth. Well, that's only one thing we've got for that of any significance, and that's NWAPA. And 4 million jobs as a minimum on the direct aspects of NWAPA without the auxiliary effects which come in as a byproduct of that. And making clear that that's substantive. This is not a make-work job. These are real jobs. These are real undertakings which are going to change the nation, going to increase the actual physical income, the circumstances of life. And just stick to that concept, which we have. But just think of how to do it. And what bothers me is the fear that we get broken up into particular aspects of issues rather than a coherent program. If you want to win a war, you don't try to get a victory for one regiment and neglect the other ones. And that's a tendency in politics in the United States, has been for a long time. Different regions, different issues. Therefore, then the master misbuilder, or whatever they call them, are able to play by playing different parts of the country, different issues in certain ways. So you don't have this unified mobilization of the nation to win a war. And treat this as a war. These three things are a war. And the regiments sometimes go into different areas, but it's the same war. Yeah? And keeping that coherence between the difference of what seems to be going on in one area as opposed to another one, as opposed to, but always there is one issue. It has three parts. And we're going with those three parts. And every issue will be absorbed under those three parts.
Yeah, and I think, that is the power that we represent, that Obama and his British backers and the British Empire is totally afraid of. They're freaked out by. Our opponents are freaked out by the fact that we're not separate candidacies running on separate issues in various districts, but we have one focal platform that all six of us are running on. And what they try to do, you've seen this throughout the election, they'll say, this is what's happening with Diane, and Diane's out there as a lone wolf going against Obama, or, this is what's happening with me, with Keisha. But you don't see a lot of the times that, wait a minute, this is a national slate, they're all running on this platform of impeaching Obama and going with a new banking recovery with the Banking Act, and organizing NWAPA. Now, if you can think about the fact that if we can get 50 people, 100 people running on this national platform, this three-step solution, and winning their campaigns on this platform of impeaching Obama, this will send the clear message. And this is why not only is it the five of us here, but we also have the candidates that we're recruiting nationally. But I think the most important thing that we can represent is that we're not necessarily putting these ideas out there to give people something. We're actually educating the population on what they have to fight for themselves. I guess this old saying goes, you give a man a fish and he'll fish for a day. You teach him how to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. But I think, the most important thing is we have to teach the population what they should be fighting for. And what Glass-Steagall represents, these are not just issues, not just policies. This is how you're going to, look at what's going on in the population, where people are facing a situation where the whole system is bankrupt and they don't really know what to fight for. So we have to educate them on Glass-Steagall, why they have to fight for these things. We have to educate them on the national banking, on NWAPA, because these policies are what's going to give the population the strength to overturn this whole bankrupt system and start anew with a fresh system.
There's one other thing we should add to this without confusing what we've just talked about. We've got a very important development in the emergence of the election, the actual installation of the new president of Russia. That's not a separate issue from these issues. What it represents is the same issue, not in terms of the inside the United States as such, but in terms of the world situation. Because the relationship of Russia and China to the threat of international warfare, nuclear warfare, is something you cannot avoid. You have to have, on one hand, you have to have what is the, number one, what are we going to do with our country? Then we have the question comes up, what are we going to do with our world? And the way our country is locked into the world situation. Right now, all of Western and Central Europe is in the process of disintegration. Helga made an extensive report on this in the document this past week. It's there. Yeah. That's also needed. And we need to emphasize that. We also know from recent discussions this past week that there is we've reached a breakdown point in the U.S. economy the United States economy has reached a level where there is nothing more to build upon in the present program. So we have the United States as such. The United States is trapped in the fact that it's a bankrupt nation, and under present policies it's going nowhere. It's going to crash. In the meantime, Europe is disintegrating. It probably won't exist as we have known it beforehand. It was already destroyed beforehand. Now it probably won't exist. Then you have the larger issue, which is the Russia-China issue. And I think we actually have to find a way of, without losing the emphasis on the one thing which is our program, for the domestic program, we also have to think about the impact on the United States from external considerations, which are now active and are interlocking with what we're doing inside the United States. But that's a different thing, but we have to be aware of it. And for example, we have this Terra America, the program, and now we have done nothing on the website to update that as such. We're still using the earlier version, and that's not being put up. That's what I mean. That we have to, in our peripheral aspect, we have the main drive on the campaign, but you have ideas in the world which have to be considered and brought into focus. And that's that case. We're getting very little effect on the type we need. I mean, Helga just made this presentation. Of course, that's important. It's available. But the focus also has to be there on the internal discussion, on the way we set the environment. What's the environment in which the United States lives? Well, the environment is Europe, Western and Central Europe. The environment is Russia. The environment is the Middle East. The environment is Africa, South America, China, so forth. And so we have to give them a sense that we are covering the entire spectrum. With our main face in the campaign is the national campaign and what the United States is going to do. But we also have to embrace that within a sense of where the world is going. And I think one thing we have to do is say, as of now, the United States has reached a point of bankruptcy, not as bad as what's happening in some parts of Europe, like Greece and Spain and so forth, or Africa. But the point is the United States economy is collapsing now. And if you want to talk about all these Republicans have nothing to say of any relevance on the collapse of the economy. They will tell you how they're going to manage something. Well, what is it they're going to manage? They're going to manage total bankruptcy and collapse with their program. Now look at other parts of the world. Look at Europe. Look at South America. Look at Africa. Look at Asia. Look at near Asia. And this awareness of the world, the sense to convey to people a sense, this is a world. The United States was once the most important nation in this world, particularly during the middle of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Under Roosevelt, the United States was the most important nation in the world. What is it now? It's a junk heap. Europe's a junk heap. Middle East is a junk heap. South America is full of junk heaps. Africa is a horrible situation. And all of this affects us. And we now, too, in this world, we're one of the bankrupt nations. We're going no place as a nation. Under these Republican candidates, this is not going to anywhere. These guys are worse than a waste of time. They're a distraction, not a leadership. That kind of thing, this kind of consideration.
Well, it's very important. I mean, Putin's inauguration is this weekend. And if you look at even just the level of the discussion between the leadership of Russia and China over the last few days, I mean, they've been stating, look, our relationship is at the highest that it's ever been. And you really do have this emerging bloc of nations which are coming from a position of advantage and are forcing the hand of the British Empire. It's not a coincidence that all of these reports from the Club of Rome, from the Royal Society, from the WWF, from Paul Ehrlich are coming out right now and openly saying we want to reduce the world's population to 1.5 billion people. But these nations know that they're on the target list. This is a death threat against the populations of Asia, where you have the largest concentration. And in that, I also think it's important that everything that you've been conveying through these Terra America articles, for example, about the defense of Earth, is what's on the front burner in the discussion in Russia. I mean, the deputy head of Roscosmos, Davidov, just came out and announced that the upcoming International Security Summit that's being hosted by Russia, the third of its kind, is no longer going to be merely talking about security threats such as international terrorism or something of that nature, but is going to be talking about the threat of asteroid collisions and what nations have to do to deflect these asteroids and comets, food security, and the threat of severe weather. So this is what you have in terms of the anti-collapse bloc, the people who are not clinging to a dead and dying system. And this is the lifeboat that people can escape this collapsing system onto.
That's what the basement was supposedly is doing.
Yeah.
It's shaken up a little bit, but that's what we're doing.
Well, just on that note, I'm not saying this was the intended effect, but reading this article by Liam Halligan that was in the Telegraph, and you get this real quality of panic about it, you know, where he just goes through systematically and lays out the complete disintegration of the Euro system. And he never really at any point tries to say what needs to be done. It's sort of left open of just the kind of a quality of panic about what to do. And I thought the response, which you know, at least the response in the paper that you wrote, where you go through Glass-Steagall and so on, and give a sense of what, you know, how we should really be thinking about banking and so on. But there is a way in which, when you hit on this question of the strategic defense policy, or just even bringing up the asteroids that threaten mankind, it dawned on me that somebody like Halligan, who is sitting there watching the Euro system disintegrate and in this kind of mode of panic, but when you look at it and you actually think of, well, what happens if an asteroid hits the planet? Shouldn't we be thinking about that? So it has a way of just even asking the question can elevate somebody out of just thinking at a much higher level.
Well, that means that our whole operation as an organization has to take this diversity of issues and put them in as part of the pattern of the total picture, with the core thing about what we're doing. What's our leadership doing in the United States? We start from that. Then we take all the issues around the world which coincide with that and try to give people a sense of a unified problem, world problem. And the question of defense of Earth is that. I mean, after all, you want to talk about this, you want to talk about that, you want to talk about this. Hey, buddy, one big rock comes here and you're all dead.
No, and this happened last week. I mean, it came out of nowhere. It was a relatively small asteroid. It was a minivan size, but it weighed 75 tons. And this was this story of people seeing this fireball streaking across the sky in broad daylight in Nevada and California, and people having no idea what this was. And it had the force of an explosion, which was 1/3 the size of Hiroshima. And the collision of this asteroid with the atmosphere, it disintegrated. It didn't hit Earth, but the very fact that nobody saw this coming is exemplary of the fact that despite all of the lies and the platitudes and everything saying, look, this is not a danger, all of a sudden, you know, people were surprised by the fact that there was a 75-ton asteroid that almost collided with Nevada.
A duck-billed platitude.
Yes.
But it's also, this is the kind of thing that does get Americans to think bigger, where you have all this foolishness. Oh, the Chinese are going to do something to us. The Chinese are they're really targeting China right now in a disgusting way. Or the Russians, this and that. You say, hey, look, you know, Obama shut down the space program. We just had this thing that almost hit. What about the next asteroid? You know, the Russians are worried about that. And it's like a flank that gets around the axiom of the person you're talking to, because also Americans do have a really they loved the space program. They loved Kennedy. And this is one of the things that when you bring it up, people find themselves getting really angry at Obama for destroying. But also, you think of the Earth as an entity as opposed to the separate little countries on it.
How about doing a little experiment? How about taking in Keisha's district, which is and just boost this up in that area and see what happens, because there's where the great sensitivity was expressed for in this NASA operation. And you know, if Obama hadn't destroyed NASA, we might have been able to save the Earth.
Yeah, right.
Including Texas even.
Texas is going to secede from the Earth too.
Even Texas is included. Even Texas can be destroyed, not just the Earth.
Right.
No. Yeah, no, we should do that.
No, we've got to just keep thinking. We're going into a new phase of the whole campaign process. It's a completely different one. The issues are being shaped in a different way, and we already have the essential overall program is clear, but the point is that we've got to help other people put it together, put the whole program together, not put the issues one at a time or two or three of the issues, but the whole program, the whole programmatic view. Here's the world. Here's where we are. Here's what the problem is. Here's what the problem is in the United States. Here's where we come in. That sort of thing. And then go right to the focal thing. Now, here's what we have to do right now. In this election. Here's what...
Yeah, I mean, it's very important that you can see that starting from the standpoint that we do, and looking at the whole world economy, looking at what the Obama administration really has been all about, which is that from day one, they've been doing the bidding of the London imperial fascists. So when you start from that standpoint and you look at something like the Obama Jobs Plan, which the president of the AFL-CIO came out and said he was angry at Obama. And I think most people kind of assumed that he was angry because it's not actually a jobs plan. It doesn't create any jobs. It's just sort of something for Silicon Valley to have another speculative bubble. But if you look at it, it's totally consistent with the Obama administration's policy overall. It's why they're against Glass-Steagall. It's the policy that there's only going to be money for more speculation, and no money is going to actually go into the physical economy at all. And so there's going to be no jobs. Social Security is not going to be funded. So if you approach it from the highest standpoint, if you approach it from what the solution is, Glass-Steagall, and the potential that actually does exist constitutionally to put people back to work, you can get people out of this sort of local or parochial or sectionalist reactions to these types of things and actually move them in the right direction. So sometimes there's a local aspect or a sectional aspect to the way that people respond to what's actually just a fascist depopulation policy, and we have an ability to elevate it to a higher standpoint.
Well, one issue like that is this question of taxes. That's a big deal. I believe now it is the case that New Jersey has the highest property tax in the country, and it's something like $6,800 per household. It's very high. It's about double the national average. So this was a big issue, and it came up in this candidates forum. What do you think about tax reform? Should we tax rich people? Blah, 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 blah. And it is really an opportunity to educate people on what a credit system is, because they're all thinking in terms of money, and the problem they're having is that money itself has no intrinsic value, and you can't possibly think of the future if you're thinking from the standpoint of covering some expense in the moment when you actually have no capacity of generating production in the future.
The key thing, though, in this is that this rate of tax rates on people and on communities is based on the fact of hyperinflation, the hyperinflationary process which is coming out of Wall Street. This is what the problem is. It goes back to 2007 when we raised the Homeowners and Bank Protection Act. That was exactly the issue. And now everything we warned against is now the reality. And this high rate of taxation, you're not being taxed for using something,
Right.
You're being taxed for bailing out Wall Street and London. Huh?
Yeah.
You're being robbed.
Yeah. Yeah, the same with the tolls. It costs $12 to cross the George Washington Bridge. To drive from New Jersey to LaGuardia Airport and back is $25 in tolls. Not gas, not anything else. It's just that.
A lot of gas coming out of Washington, but no tanks to put it in.
No, but go ahead.
Good. No, it's fine.
I just think that the whole discussion about people who are willing to not just talk about tweaking one part of the existing system or the other, but when you see that an entire system is falling down, the people who have the courage to examine the fundamental assumptions and fundamental beliefs which created the system in the first place, and to say we're going to junk the ones that have led us into this dire situation, those are the people who are qualified to be leaders. And whether it be here in the United States or whether it be Vladimir Putin in Russia, but it all comes under the heading of, what we've discussed, the SDI principle, the common aims of mankind. And what's your commitment to the future of mankind?
Weaknesses will not save us.
Yes.
We have a tax on tweaking. That's what we said. It's exactly this. It's rethinking every week and getting a fresh view of where we are as compared to the previous week.
Yeah.
Looking at the world as a whole. Looking at space. These are the things, and you realize how inactive the minds of so many citizens are. They don't have active minds. They have a few things that frighten them, possess them, with no sense of the future. Here we are, as of this past week. It has been remarked that the U.S. economy has reached a breakdown point, where there is inherently no independent factor of growth left. It's over. The party's over. And there's no conception of this. People are still trying to fight through how the bailout process is going to work. Then they get this thing like these taxes piled on. And taxes for what? Taxes for supporting money claims which are absolutely worthless. We're being taxed for nothing. Nothing has now become the biggest tax problem. Doing nothing is the most expensive thing that you can do in the United States today. But you have to do it. You'll be taxed if you don't. Fun time.
Lots more to come in the coming days. Yeah.
Good. Okay. I think that's a good concluding point. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Have fun.